All right, what's up, everybody? I'm still working on an intro, so I got my man Joey Yak working on a new intro for me. But this is the Work Wherever podcast. I'm Roy Edwards, and I have with me a good friend who's a repeat on my podcast. That is Katrina Ghazarian. Hey, Katrina, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. That's a pretty cool intro. I mean, I don't know how much more of it.
How much more do we need to do, right? Like,
yeah, it's way better than mine. I'm like, hey, welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate it. Maybe Joey, you're out of a job. Sorry, buddy. Katrina says it's okay. So no. What we're going to talk about today is, this is the Work Wherever podcast. And so a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about in this podcast has to do with remote implementation. But really what we're going to be talking about here today is around the Great Resignation or the Great Realignment or the Great Reshuffle or insert great word here. And I see remote work and work wherever as one of the chief benefits that organizations have to have. And I'm thinking, well, who better to talk about benefits with than my girl Katrina? So here we're at, and so you're my first guest on the new alignment of this podcast. So thanks for coming on. And then I guess that's a great place to start, right? Is the question is around this Great Resignation. Like, why are people leaving first? Like, what's prompted this, and what is the Great Resignation?
So the Great Resignation is being defined as essentially a lot of people are leaving their jobs and they're accepting jobs at other organizations. Now, whether they're leaving the company altogether or the industry, at the end of the day, they're leaving. And they're doing something else with somebody else. So that's how the Great Resignation is being defined. And essentially, we've seen record numbers and people leaving their jobs over the last year or so. And so that's like the buzzword that they've created, which is the Great Resignation. I definitely have a different take on what's happening. And maybe it's because I work with companies day in and day out. I talk to a lot of humans. I understand what's going on. I have kind of the nuance that I have an HR company that does HR services for other companies, but I'm also an employer and a CEO. So I have a very specialized position when it comes to this, because I can really see both sides of what's happening. And so if I can chalk it up into like a one or two sentences of what is actually happening, what's actually happening is that we're going through a global transition of values. And so because the pandemic happened, nobody is the same. From when they started, since before the pandemic, everyone is really questioning or asking themselves these big questions. Who am I? And what am I here for? And so typically what we do as humans is we ask ourselves, who are we? And then we attach work to who we are. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing essentially to change is where we work. Because it's almost the easiest thing to do for a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. We'll stay in a bad marriage for decades, But when it comes to our work, because there's so many options and essentially you're not hurting anybody, it's the easiest thing to change first. And so when we believe that it's our environment that is making us feel like anxious and uneasy, and we live in an era where we're all doers. We have to do better, do more, then we're just constantly moving around. And so what's happening is people don't know who they are, and they work for organizations being led by people who don't know who they are anymore. And so everybody's just going through it right now. Everybody's asking themselves the really hard questions of who am I today and what am I here for? So a lot of people are moving because of that, because they believe that they have to move in order to figure it out. However, statistics and studies are now coming out saying up to 52% of people who left their company are already looking for another job. Mm. So it wasn't necessarily the workplace. It wasn't employers weren't showing up for employees, and it wasn't employees being entitled and being greedy. It's not that. It's just people don't know who they are right now and what they stand for and what they're supposed to do with their life. And so they're just changing the one thing that they feel is easiest to change. Like we saw a lot of people moving. We saw huge I live in Southern California, in Los Angeles, huge exodus from California. And I hope all those people, are feeling more like themselves, or they're figuring out. But the truth of the matter is, doing isn't really going to stabilize the Great Resignation.
Yeah. And so how many of those people, so this was interesting, something that I saw with, we can't ignore like the last 2 years that led up to this within COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And so COVID sent a lot of people home. Obviously, they couldn't come to the office. Places were closed unless you were a essential worker. But even then, essential workers saw a break at, and maybe it was a couple of weeks or a month or whatever, but there was still a break where everything seemed to stand still for a second. And a lot of the employees that I've seen, talked to, or that have applied to positions within our organization, their lives are so drastically different from 2 years ago. Maybe they live in a new county, they moved out of the city, maybe they moved to a totally different state. And so now organizations are faced with, okay, well, we're going to go back to normal. It's 2019 again, everybody come to the office. But maybe some of those people, like you're talking about that mass exodus out of California, maybe they don't live in California anymore, and their boss is like, hey, come on back down to downtown LA. How much are we seeing that as playing a role in people moving? It's just their lives are, they're no longer wanting to go back to metropolis. Maybe they want to leave the cities, or they want to become a remote employee full time. Is that playing a role at all?
It is, but I don't think it's playing as big as a role as the news or media is making it out to be. I think employers are as employees were moving, employers were mostly keen on that happening. And so I don't believe employers are asking people who moved out of state to like come back to the state. I think there's like a certain level of acceptance. Like, okay, those people are there. We don't expect them to come to the office, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's happening to that scale. However, I think where it can be happening is the people who didn't move. They're still local, and the office is open, and employers are asking them to come back, a couple of times a week, a couple of days a week. And maybe those people are like, I don't want to come back at all for a various amount of reasons, whether even driving. I live in LA. So even if you live like 12 miles from a place, that's like an hour in traffic.
Yeah, right.
So, I think that there's a lot of moving parts happening. And I think we have to find out for any reason, why are people resistant to going back to the office if it's convenient for them to go to the office? Why are they resistant to it? And two, find out what do they want then? Or even help them be open to, if the office is like 10 minutes away, maybe try coming back a couple of days a week, see how that goes. And if you don't like it, then fine. But I think that we're prematurely making decisions without really knowing what the experience is going to be like, because we're used to it now. We're used to like being home. My friends and I joke about this all the time. It's like, I think I went to a play. I went to a concert and I went to a play. And both at the concert and both at the play, I had people like behind me that were kind of loud. And I had to question, like, am I just used to like not having people around me while I'm enjoying something, or is it just the luck that I have people who feel like they need to talk and argue or whatever during the entire show? So, I mean, I got used to things being a certain way after, once we were in it for like a year. And so even for me, I'm like, do I really want to go there? Do I really need to do all that? So I think people, I think it's okay to ask employees to come to the office if it's convenient for them. And if it's not okay, if the employees feel like it's not okay, I think that as an employer, we have a responsibility to find out why.
And so how many of these questions, in this process, which I think you're raising huge points here. Whereas it's a decision that you have to make with your employees. Right? You have to ask these questions as to say, do you want to come back? Why don't you want to come back? Why do you want to stay remote? Is the production increased? Has it decreased? Have things changed? Have we gotten our processes? Have we spent a whole bunch of money on software to, so that you can go somewhere else? And are we going to take a hit there? These are all things that business owners and managers are having to go through. And part of that is understanding your employees and how they work and are they engaged and building that culture, which I think that prior to 2020, culture was seen as what happens in between walls. And it was, how well do these people get along? Put a ping pong table in the break room, right? Put massage chairs down the hall so people can go in there and have fun while they're at work.
What are they doing at massage chairs and having fun?
I don't know. That was a thing. Did you not have? There's no massage chairs at Game Day HR.
No. Even like a nap. One of my clients have a nap room, and I'm like, I wouldn't use it.
Do you guys have those types of perks though? Did you have like ping pong tables or anything like that?
Well, I mean, we had Netflix on a TV in the break room. That's like, and they would like the team members would get together and watch a movie together during lunch, and they every day for lunch they'd get together and continue watching the movie. And so, I mean, I think where you're getting to is you have to. Sometimes we put these overarching labels on the future of work or the entire workforce. I don't know if you saw my post yesterday that Bamboo HR they were like, in a survey, blah, 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 38% of employees feel like they're less valued than they ever felt before. Yep. It's like, okay, that sucks, However, you go deeper and they surveyed 2,000 people. That's a really, really small sample of the entire workforce. And now I'm not saying that that people aren't feeling valued, but what I'm saying is we really, us influencers, really enjoy, making these big statements without really having enough data to make those statements. And then we make those statements and everybody's like running around with emotions and I have to do something. What do I do? Or their hopelessness or distress or whatever that looks like. So even remote work, I see people, it's like everyone should, like the office is done. Everyone should work remotely. Well, some people don't want to work from home. It doesn't work for them. They want to go to an office. I work from here. I'm in my place all the time that I refuse to work out in my home now because I just want to be here all day long doing nothing. I want like adult interaction. I want, I have a 9-year-old here. I'm pretty sure my maturity level has gone down significantly because they say you're a culmination of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Well, I have a 12-year-old dog and a daughter, most days of the week. And the weekends, obviously, I have Richard and everything like that. But, I want to go talk to an adult sometimes. Maybe wink at somebody, like doing arm curls. I don't know. But remote work doesn't work for every single person, every single profession. So we have to be careful about these philosophies that we're unilaterally saying are true without really having a ton of data to work around. So you're saying that you don't like the Bruno soundtrack? Is that what I just got out of that? Because it's kind of a banger. So I don't know. That's a main player in our house. But I'm totally with you, right? So you are who you hang out with. And there are tons of struggles when it comes to a remote organization. Those same struggles existed inside an office space. That when you go into an office space and you have maybe somebody keeps knocking on your door and they want to walk in and they're distracting you, and you have these types of distractions that exist at an office space. You have those that could potentially be greater at home if you have kids running around. Like I have 4 children and 2 dogs and 3 cats. So I have a ridiculous amount of distractions, right? And it doesn't matter how many times I lock my door or turn on air. They give no fucks. I'll
They
tell you,
don't. Zero.
They don't care. My kid does not care. It doesn't matter how much I yell at her or throw something at her.
Right. It doesn't matter.
Does not care.
They'll come up,
She wants-
sit next to you on the camera, like, who's that? Who are you talking to?
Right.
Hey,
They think they're so cute.
watch this.
They kind of
Yeah,
are.
they are a little bit. But what we're getting at here is, and the point of what you're saying, and that's what I'm saying as well, right? Remote is not as all-encompassing magic wand, like, boom, we're a remote organization, everyone's happy, right? And that's part with building a business culture is your walls, the same reason why sending everyone home doesn't increase morale and your company culture, the same reason why is to, if you bring everyone back and you paint the walls a new color and throw a ping pong table in the break room, that doesn't mean that you have good culture. You have to speak to your employees. You have to find out what it is that they want, how they work best. Some want to go back and some never want to sit in traffic ever again. And you have to understand your employees. And so how can you do that? Is it as simple as just like, hey, everybody, what do you want to do? And then we listen and then that's what we do? Or how do you do that?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to look at your company values because it's really hard to make any decisions until you really know what your values are because the answer is not always going to be clear and employees may not know enough to make certain decisions. And so it always comes back to your values. You and I are both in RTA Syndicate, right? Mm-hmm. It's Andy Frisella. They don't have a remote work environment. Mm-hmm. In fact, they built this huge facility so people could spend more time there on the facility grounds, right? With the gym and everything. And from what I know, I'm sure their culture is fantastic. I mean, I'm sure they have problems just like every other company, but for the most part, I mean, it's like $100 million business. So they're doing okay. Right. They're probably doing okay, you know? And that's what works for them. And so Andy and, whoever the leaders were of that business looked at their values and they decided people are going to come here. They're going to come and work. This is where our culture is. They're going to work out here. They're going to work. They're going to do all the things here at this facility. It's why we built it because that was aligned with their values. Because they recruited based on those values, I'm guessing not a large population of people had a problem with that, right? So it really comes down to your values as an organization. So you have to remember, you're not going to be able to give all employees everything they want all the time. It's impossible. You won't please all of them. So you take the data, you could do a climate survey, for example, make it anonymous, ask certain questions with a scale of like 1 being strongly disagree, 5 being strongly agree, and make these statements about coming back to the office, for example. Like I would love to come back to the office, 2 days a week. Strongly disagree, strongly agree. I don't want to come to the office because I don't feel safe. Disagree, agree. And you start taking the data. And the reason why you want to put them in numbers is because it's easier to quantify the data. It's easier
like a Likert scale.
Consolidate it. So if you do like fill in the blanks, it's really hard to consolidate that data. Yeah. But if you're doing like 1 to 5 scales, it's easy to consolidate it because you can see, okay, well, 65% of everybody said this, right? Mm-hmm. So you do an anonymous climate survey, number 1. You take the data. Actually, number 1, your values. Number 2, do a climate survey. Number 3, look at the results of that survey. And you're going to find some data that like egregiously proves that you need to make a decision in this way. And then you're going to have some that are not, maybe it's 50-50 split. Yeah. And so you have to ask yourself, can we accommodate the 50% that wanted A and can we accommodate the 50% that wanted B and do that? If we can't do that, where are our values? What do our values say that we're supposed to do in this situation? Because your values should be defined. It's not like, well, integrity is my value. Well, what does that mean? What does integrity mean? Well, to us, integrity is doing what we say we'll do when we say we'll do it. And so if we said we were going to do something and we look at and we have a decision to make, our values are going to put us in the direction that we need to go. And so those are the 3 big things I think companies could do right now to determine what the kind of hybrid work situation is going to be. You know, maybe you change your office from like, I have a personal desk and you just have hot desks and everybody's responsible for cleaning up after it when they're done, and they can come in, you know, whenever they want. Maybe a department, maybe only certain departments are like, we really need to get together because we're marketing and we have storyboards and we, you know, we have a war room and we need to come up with like very, very creative strategies. And we seem to do a better job when we're in person. So, okay, marketing will come in, you know, 1 day a week. You have to, as a department head or a business leader, you have to do what's best for you and your team and what environment you need to create for them to thrive. It may not be the same as the rest of the company, and I think that's okay.
Yeah. And it's what your people, so you have a rule that I have subscribed to for years, which was breaking down, well, you wrote an article about the rule. So I don't know if it's a real rule or not, but I read an article and I'm going to make a sweeping generalization because that's what I do. So I saw an article that you wrote, you posted on LinkedIn about how to manage remote employees. And so your rule was no more than 6 people per team, I believe, right? So I have that same rule. I call it the 2 pizza rule. So if you have a team and you order 2 pizzas, is everyone going to be okay with that? If you have to order like 3 or 4 pizzas, your team is too large, right? So
or something else is too large.
You know, maybe y'all need to do some 75 hard or something. I don't know.
I could smash like 4 slices.
We gotta order the big, like the Pisano, like the no cut corner giant square pieces then, right?
I just have my lactate pills available and
right, just popping them. So, but the point there is that order big pizzas, but 2, and most importantly, there is you have to keep your team small so that you can really connect with them. It doesn't matter how large an organization is, right? You could go to like enterprise level organizations. So a lot of what we do is with the federal government. So you're talking about thousands of employees under a blanket director, but then you break them down into divisions and then offices and then teams, and then you get to these smaller, okay, I can actually have a stand-up call with you. We can actually have a conversation in the morning and I can connect with you. And those values are passed down. You'll be surprised how many people don't actually, well, you won't be surprised, but maybe people listening might be surprised at how many businesses, they don't even name values, right? They're just posting buzzwords all over the wall, you know? So,
I mean, that's like the biggest thing I talk about at this point. So obviously early in my career, it was like compliance and you have to have this and that. And then I got bored with that. And then I moved on to like recruiting and infrastructure. And I really niched myself in with companies that were going through like capital exchanges. So fundraising, M&A, full exit, selling the business, whatever. I really kind of dove into that sector. And that was fine. Now it's like, fuck your values, bro. Like, you don't even know what they are. You don't know what they are, and you don't even know what they mean, and you don't even demonstrate them yourself, and you don't even hold employees accountable to them. Like, it's not about what's posted on the wall and pretty canvases, but how are you defining it, and how do you measure yourselves against those values? Look, me and my Booski, every 6 months or so, go through our values. And honestly, what I've realized is values creates a language for you, for whether it's your wife and your family, whether it's me and my friends, whether it's multi-generational conversation, whether it's employee, like values is a language that we all can understand. And also it really helps when you're having the difficult conversation. So instead of like, hey, you didn't take the trash out last night, you don't care about having a clean house, or you don't care about helping me, you don't care. It becomes more of, I see that you value this instead. And here's what I value. And now how do we work together? So it becomes less like you aren't, you don't, blah, blah, blah. And it becomes more about you are and I am. So how do we move forward together? That's what values are to me. It's so much more than performance. It's so much more than pictures and on the website. It's so much more. It's language to me. and I know you have a point here about the Great Depression and the parallels.
Yeah.
It's a values. So the obvious differences between then and now is like we have a lot of jobs and we didn't have any back then available. But you're still seeing like a shift in values. And the values back then were security and stability.
Yep.
And so we have Gen Xers and we have baby boomers who were either raised by parents or grandparents of people who really suffered in the Great Depression. So their values are security, stability, determination, loyalty, because it was all about your relationships back then. Because there were no jobs, so it was who you knew back then.
People moved around a lot less.
Exactly. And so, I see it all the time on TikTok or whatever. It's like Gen X versus, millennials. And it's like, that's all they care about is money. It's like, that's not true. It's just they value security because they know what it's like to not be secure. They know what it's like to wait in a bread line and a soup line and, all of these things. So it becomes less about, well, all they care about money. They don't know anything about technology. They don't want to change their ways, and more about, I understand why they value these things. And here's what I value as a millennial: meaningful work, work-life balance, autonomy and creativity. And me particularly, I have like a penchant for authority. I don't like it. So I started a business, right? So now I can go communicate with my mom and dad because I know what they value. They know what I value. And now we get to make decisions together on how we get to fulfill both of those things.
Yeah. So I'm a millennial as well. We're actually similar age. I have you. I'm a little bit older than you. So
because I'm 25.
Right. Obviously.
My maturity level is 21-year-olds.
Right. But when I left, so to your point of that, right? So I do believe that we are due for, and thank you for reading my posts, by the way. I do believe that we are due for like a workplace revolution. That about 100 years ago was the last time that as a general scope of capitalism benefits here in America, it was the last time we really looked at mandatory benefits or what was the norm in terms of benefits, that being health insurance, right? So people came back, they said, okay, hey, your employer better give you health insurance or don't even speak to that person, right? Like that's what you're looking for, which ties into the security, which ties into everything that you just mentioned. I'm totally on board. It's been 100 years, give or take, the last time that we really had that conversation. And I believe that the next time that we're going to see that is now. I think that part of this moving around and you want to find a business that has touched on a lot of things you're saying is culture is important and real culture, not like ping pong tables and parties, right? Real culture. And then I do believe
why you gotta get on ping pong tables? I like ping pong tables.
I like ping pong too, but
pickleball courts. Like if you are a company that has a pickleball court,
that's good culture.
I will shut my business down and come work for you.
I'm coming to get play some pickleball. But like you got to listen to your employees, right? You got to have an understanding of like what's actually important to you, because like like I just said, I'm a millennial, right? When I graduated college, the recession was happening. And so all of these other people are having a hard time. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I actually want to do in life and who I am, right? Like I was 30 minutes ago, I was just at a frat party, not giving a care about anything. And now you're telling me that now I have to care about this great recession that's going on. I have no idea what that means, right? So I never really went through that. So when I actually started getting jobs, it was more of like, where's the recognition for the work that I just did? What do you mean I can't work from home? The people that I'm doing business with are in another state. Why do I have to sit in an office space? Those were the kind of things that I was having conversations with myself about in my first job out. And like you, I'm not big on authority. So that like led to me starting my own business too. But like building a culture and having that understanding of what your employees want in terms of benefits. So like, I know that you have a list on Game Day HR, which guys, go check out this list. Go to Game Day HR. I'll hit you a little. I had a little little guide there down below, so you can learn more at gamedayhr.com. But there's a list of 44 best company perks that you guys have posted up there from January of this year. And I love this list. I went through it, but I love that the first section there is health and wellness. Because to me, health and wellness is one of the things that's been drastically overlooked, even in a remote organization, because the statistics around people who are working remote is they're working longer hours because they feel guilty because they're at home. So they work, instead of working your traditional 8 hours, they're working 10 hours, and they're actually working up to an entire day more because they feel like, I'm always in the office, so I'm actually going to work on weekends. So how can businesses, knowing that people are going to be killing themselves through the stress, what are some things that they can do with health and wellness for not just remote employees, but employees in general?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can tell you what we do.
Yeah, please.
And anybody listening can, if you can do that, I think it's good. And obviously you want to see if they even want that. But so we have unlimited PTO policy with a mandatory 10-day off every year.
Mandatory, as in they have to take 10.
They have to take it. Yeah, they have to take it. And I am on them about like, when's your next week? I had one that just took 4 or 5 days, a couple weeks. Last week, I believe it was. So I'm like, okay, when's your next one? You know?
Yeah.
So, and I'm on top of it, and I make sure that they're taking that time, because I take my time. Listen, did it take me years to get to this point? 100%. So if you're like a new business owner, let me tell you, you're not going to be able to take an unplugged vacation for at least 5 years, at least. So I hit my 5-year mark, and I made it a point to develop my team so much that they didn't need me whatsoever. And so I took like my first unplugged vacation last November, and I've been in business since 2016. So once I established that this is what I wanted, I made sure all my employees had the same benefit. Right. And you could do it sooner. I mean, you should do it sooner, but you know, my team, they're so dedicated to the company winning.
Yeah.
That I have to, I excuse my language, but it's like, I call them like stubborn little effers, because I'm like, don't work. And they're like working, and I get emails so I can only do so much, and to the point of like, I get upset with them. But they're just so into it. They're so into doing what they're doing that I can only do so much. I can only prevent them from logging on to their Gmail at certain hours of the night, you know?
Yeah.
But I also think it gives them flexibility, because, you know, if they have kids, they're married, they have grandparents, they're like doing things. So I think they like the fact that they can come on at 8:00 at night and finish up what they were working on earlier, because they had school pickup or a doctor's appointment. So I think my team is all measured on outcomes. It's not hours worked. They just happen to work a certain set of amount of hours. I think, I'm going to be honest, I don't even know how many hours they work.
Is that important? Like, does it matter?
I mean, I get the payroll like register, and then it's like, is this approved? And I don't really look at it. That's just the truth. Because as long as the outcomes are being met, I don't really care. Now, if I see like 18 hours of overtime, I'm lying. I do check to see if there's overtime, because I don't want them to work overtime, not because I'm being cheap, but because I don't want them to work that much.
Right.
If they can't get done what I'm asking, what needs to be done in a certain amount of time, then we need to like remanage the expectations, and we need to remanage the workload. But I know what they're capable of. They've been with me 6 years, 3 years. I know I know them enough now to know what they can do. So unlimited PTO, mandatory days off is number one. We offer fully paid maternity leave and paternity leave, paid family leave, up to 4 months, which is great, because we're in California. California subsidizes like 65% of it. So really, I'm only paying 35% for that time, which I did something on TikTok or whatever. I calculated out for a $75,000 employee, it's like $6,000 for the entire leave duration. Wow. Totally worth it. That's totally worth it for me, for them. It's worth it. It's worth the investment. And how often are they going to have babies? Not that often, unless they're you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there are things that you can do that when you actually look at the cost of it, it's so worth it. We have medical, obviously, we have medical, dental, vision. They get quarterly bonuses, and the quarterly bonuses is strictly related to their like their production.
How good they did through like KPIs. I know that you're big on KPIs.
Right. So I basically take like the revenue that they brought in through their clients that they manage and, you know, things like that. And then they get a certain percentage of that. So they have like autonomy. If they want to make more bonus, they got to get more clients and bill more hours, you know?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm the one that brings in the clients.
Yeah.
But they manage it. So that's like something else I do. They obviously work from home for the most part. They take days off when they need to. I don't really say anything about it. One just had a surgery, a medical procedure, and she only wanted to take one day off, and I forced her to take the rest of the week off.
Right.
But that's what works for my team. You know, I think you have to find out I think you have to look at your budget, find out what your team wants, and see how close you can get to matching that, you know?
Right.
Dang it, there was something that you had said. Oh, so during the recession, I got crushed. I obliterated. I was working at a bank at that time. So I was 21. I was like the peak production. I was a personal banker on the retail side, but I was also licensed for like annuities and life insurance. And I had just come off of like the top rep in the entire organization. I had been there for a year and a half, I want to say. And then they closed half of their branches. And I couldn't find a job for 10 months. Didn't matter what my resume said.
Right.
I couldn't find a job for 10 months. I had like some personal debt, like credit card and personal loan. Everything was charged off. My FICO was like 550. I couldn't even get a cell phone in my own name.
Oh man.
So the recession completely wiped me out. And I didn't make what I had been making. It took me 7 years to get back.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know what it's like to be crushed by the stock market or by, you know, the market. Cause I was in banking and a lot of us got crushed, and, you know, there's nowhere for us to go. Like your skills only are transferable, you know, to a certain extent. So I know what it's like. And obviously people are going to, you know, you want to talk about the work revolution.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what companies need to do right now, what they should do, and what really it benefits them in the long run. So before it was benefits. So now the work revolution is caring about the whole human. So I talked about how we're all going through a transition of values right now. So people don't know who they are or what they want. It is in an employer's best interest to help facilitate that with their employees. Mm-hmm. Help them find out who they are and what they want, and help them see and connect to the company and organization's mission and values. And if they don't, help them find something else. You can't lose in a situation like that. And so, whereas before it was like, leave your personal stuff at the door, now with the pandemic and everybody's seen my kid's butt and all these other things that have happened, it's like now an employer actually has a responsibility to care about the entire human, all parts of them, and to help facilitate, like whether it's mental health benefits or it's like executive coaching or it's, you know, recommending buying books for them to read or journals or whatever it is. An employer has a huge opportunity right now to revolutionize their workplace by basically, and I got this from Michael McFall from Big Beat Coffee. They have like 300 franchise locations, but basically helping employees design a life that they absolutely love.
Yes.
how can we do that as an employer? Because it's in our best interest, selfishly. Mm-hmm. Right? If my people are happy, they're performing.
Right.
So I think that's the work revolution that we're going to see.
I'm 1,000% on board. And when you build, and that gets back to values, right? You set your values, you bring people in on your values, you actually talk about those values. And so I have my employees memorize. Mm-hmm. So we created an acronym because we're fancy, and which is Foundation, which I spent so much time on that acronym. First off,
that's a lot of values.
It's so many. It's 10.
Yeah. So, maybe we could do like Dation.
Dation. Yeah. Shun.
Found.
Found.
That's a lot. I say like 5 or 6 is like good number.
So we have 10, and they're called the 10. I originally called them the 10 Commandments, and I was like, that's a pretty very forceful thing. So I called them the 10 Guiding Principles, and then I was like, okay, and then now it's Foundation. So, but it spells out an acronym, but I have them memorize it, and then we talk about it on our stand-ups, and then we have months where it's like, okay, now this month we're going to talk about the F, and then Foundation's only 10, so there's 2 months, which are generally our first month and our last month of the year, which we are celebrating mostly. But my employees, like what you're talking about, your employees are on the weekends and stuff like that, and they're like just so hyped, and they like want to work and they want to do things. So I wasn't going to bring this up, but behind me, so there's 2 little awards back here. So for one, right? So I met Katrina.
The computer is over there. So
okay. So I met Katrina back in 2020, I think. And so we won the 2021 Best Places to Work. And then this year we won it again, 2022 Best Places to Work. Now, I don't know if you can see this, Katrina, but
I can.
The R in presence is capitalized, right?
Nice.
So somebody held down the shift key too long, because that's not how we spell, right? And so I uploaded a picture of this plaque on Instagram, and I got like 3 DMs from my employees that were like pissed that they spelled. And I'm like, whatever, like cool, like we got our plaque, like yeah. And they're like, what is that? There's no R, like that. And I'm like, yeah, because we like when you invest into your people will invest into you, and they'll care to the point where they'll like, I've had meetings called by my employees with me where they are concerned about something. They're like, hey, I don't think that this is happening the way that it should be happening. Or I don't think that this, and I'm like, all right, well, and that's simply because so what you're talking about, find out what they care about and care about it. I have an employee that hopefully he's not listening to this. Well, hopefully he is listening to this, but who was like, I really want a Tesla. And so when he said that, in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to figure out a way to get this guy a Tesla. Like there's a company benefit. Yeah, I could give you a bonus at the end of the year, or I could figure out a way to help you with a down deposit on your Tesla, right? And maybe it's the same numerical value of a bonus, a check, or one, but which one means more to that person?
Right? They know what they're going to use it for,
right? And so you got to get creative with your employees. And so I only brought these up because of the R, and I thought that was hilarious but also because Katrina guys helped me get these. So if you want if you want awards, fun awards like this, which, I got to drink at the award ceremony. That was fun.
Yeah. So when do I get my residual?
I'll send it to you. It's in the mail.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in the mail. I'll Venmo you. But Katrina, thanks so much for coming on. You're my first guest on the new podcast, and I appreciate it. And guys, I have her little ticker going down there. It's gamedayhr.com. But if there's anything you want to plug or say or send people in, how can people follow you? And the floor is yours for. I'll just log off if you want me to. This is take over my whole feed. I don't care. I love having conversations with you. But how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, okay. I was going to sing the national anthem.
Please do. Yeah, I'll mute. Yeah.
So I think just given the topic that we covered, we do have a free company culture quiz on our website. You visit the website, it's top right corner. It's going to ask you a list of questions. It's going to give you a grade based off how you answer those questions. Values is one of those questions. So take that first, just to get curious about where should we prioritize our efforts right now. And, at the end of the day, we can talk about culture, but if your company is still in survival mode, so meaning you're out of compliance, there's risk of, liability, getting sued, claims, penalties, things like that, that comes first. You have to kind of get yourselves out of survival, and then you can focus on the culture part of it. So culture quiz, you can find me. I'm like literally the only Katrina Ghazarian in the world, I think, still. So if you Google my name, all my profiles and probably some not so flattering pictures will come up. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm most active, I would say, on LinkedIn, although I am working towards TikTok. Finally, somebody got me into it. So I am on TikTok now, Kat Ghazarian, Instagram, Kat Ghazarian, or you can just email me, katrinag@gamedayhr.com.
And you guys better do that. And follow her on TikTok, because she does the best dances. She does all these hand.
I only have 40 followers.
I don't follow you. I'm not on TikTok. Yeah, I'm not on TikTok.
I'm not doing the dances though. I will tell you that. It's not the dances, but
it's not the dances. Well, maybe
man, it's like so humbling, to start a new social media page, because I'm like, oh, nobody's
there's nobody
watching.
here.
Whereas LinkedIn, there's like so much engagement for me because of, I started it a while ago, but TikTok, man, if you want to get humbled, start a TikTok.
Right, go hang out.
No one's going to watch your video.
So I'm not allowed on TikTok because I have a clearance through the government. And so they sent me an email and they were like, don't go on TikTok for a bunch of reasons, China and all this other fun stuff.
You're so cool.
I'm like, that's just so cool.
I have a clearance, and then I would create like a whole social media page based off of me not being able to go on TikTok.
Right. Well, now I'm going to do that. So clearance. That's why my name is different on all the different platforms. It's like impossible to find me.
I kept calling you Gregory.
That's right, because that's how I show up. Or if I would have had that's how I would show up if I existed on that platform. But Katrina, I really appreciate you coming on, big time. Guys, go follow her, connect with her, and we're gonna have to do this again because constantly.
Well,
maybe we'll just start our own
one live every week. So if ever I can't book another one, I'll come back to you.
Let's do it. I'm serious. We'll just create our own podcast together, and then we can be best friends. So
we'll be like work wherever, kinda.
Work wherever, unless it sucks, because HR sucks. Awesome.
All right,
thanks, Katrina.
Thank you.
I appreciate you so much. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Check us out on where are we? I don't even know where we're at. I think we're on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn. All those other podcasts, basically wherever your podcast is found. Right now, you can still go to innovariepodcast.com. That's our previous podcast. We are going to rebrand, and we'll have a new URL on that in the future. But for now, go to innovariepodcast.com or find us at Capital Presence on YouTube. And thanks again, guys, for hanging out. Until next time, see you.